Hey, lovely to have you with us. My name is Dave Benson. I'm the Executive Director of Associated Christian Schools, and this is the Keeping Faith podcast. It's designed to help executive leaders within the schools to think about how do we keep faith to our calling, and that is a calling of Christian education for the common good. How do we avoid mission drift, and what kind of wisdom is there? It's also a great opportunity to get to know the different leaders within our network and to be able to celebrate with different schools the contribution that they make and how we might pray for them. And today I'm over here at Toowoomba Christian College, TCC, and I'm delighted to be joined by Claire Whereat. Yep. Lovely to have you with us, Claire.
Thank you.
And Claire is the head of secondary school. Have I got that right?
You got that right, yes.
Fantastic. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Really excited about it. A little bit nervous, but really excited.
It's just a great conversation. And it's definitely a crisp morning up here in Toowoomba up the range. I think we're probably Queensland's coolest part, or one of the cooler parts.
One of the cooler parts, yes.
Yeah.
Certainly if we go out on the downs a little bit at the moment,
yeah.
A little bit more chilly, a little bit more frosty, but at the moment, the breeze across the mountaintop keeps us nice and cool.
I felt it. It's lovely seeing the countryside too, just driving up here. So tell us a little bit about yourself and about Toowoomba Christian College and your context and what you do here.
Yep, sure.
Yeah.
So I've been at the school, this is my 16th year at the college. So very excited about that and what that has to, what that means for me, really. Always had great opportunities here to grow. But as a school, we've been around since 1979. We actually started in Toowoomba. We're now out at Highfields. So a lot of people sort of question why we're called Toowoomba Christian College when we're actually at Highfields.
Yep.
We've been out here since the 80s and gradually growing into our block of land that we have here. So really excited about the growth that we've got going on at the moment. And in around 2017, our executive team at the time went to a conference down in Tasmania and found out more about the liberal arts. And so that's probably been the modern journey of TCC for a little while now, is what does liberal arts allow us to do as a Christian school? How does it allow us to, or enable us really, to form our young people in both their academics but also in their character and in their faith, and how does that allow us to do that authentically? So we've been on that journey for a little while now. We're still journeying. We're not perfect in any way, shape or form. But
almost 10 years though at it.
Almost 10 years at it. And it's a challenge in Australia, I think, because there's not really a movement like this in Australia. In America, it's very strong. Even in the UK, it's quite strong there in various ways. So when we were first moving into the liberal arts, it was a matter of finding like-minded people to understand how we could do this in an Australian context. And that's probably taken the first 5 to 6 years.
Yeah, just to get your bearings.
Just to get the context of what it means to be a liberal arts school, but also to ensure that as we are thinking about the liberal arts, that we're not drifting away from the mission, that the reason the school was planted. And that was really core to us as a school, as an executive, making sure that we're still honouring why this school was created, which was to be a Christian school, not to be a liberal arts school. And that's why we call ourselves a Christian school in the liberal arts tradition.
Okay, that's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah. So we in our pedagogy, in our philosophy about education, we're very liberal arts minded and looking for the best ways to do the teaching and learning in the classroom, the best way to engage in curriculum, which is another challenge in Australia with the liberal arts. But at the same time, our mission is to help kids know God and know God personally. So we can't liberal arts is not going to overshadow.
Yeah, you can't swing it in a totally different direction.
And I think that's one of the reasons we were actually drawn to the liberal arts, if I'm honest, is because that philosophy of education and what education is supposed to be and form in young people is actually very faith-based and very much about revealing truth. And the love of God. So I think it was a natural mechanism for us to choose, rather than trying to go, well, what does the Australian curriculum require of us? And how do we
starting with your first principles and then
start with first principles,
then contextualising to ACARA as opposed to starting with ACARA.
Absolutely. So it's been an amazing journey, and we've had amazing people join us along the way. And surprisingly, well, maybe it was only surprising to me, the interest that people have in being in a Christian school and the liberal arts tradition. University graduates who are sort of like, I've been trained in this mechanism, but it's always felt shallow, or there hasn't been enough depth there for me as a Christian teacher. I can see that in your offering of what you're asking me to do and be as a teacher, that this is more and calls to me more.
That's great.
In that way. So I think that's probably a surprising outcome of all of this.
Yeah, and we'll dive into all things liberal arts soon. And for those who are watching again, I know that there's probably 4, maybe 5 schools within the ACS, or around 40 schools that are all interested in the liberal arts, classical education. So I'm hopeful that this will be an encouragement to you. And also, once it's online, do check out from the 2026 Leadership Summit. We did have an address on the Thursday evening that was from Natalie Kennedy from over at Northside, which will tie in really well to this conversation as well. But before we get too far into it, just tell me, what did you used to teach? And do you still teach it at all now?
I don't know. I'm not in the classroom anymore, and that is one of my greatest sadnesses.
Yeah, I was going to say, because everyone gets kind of promoted if they've got the abilities to see the bigger picture, but then you're kind of brought away from something you originally loved. So what was that area?
So I was a history, English and geography teacher.
Oh, nice combination.
Yeah.
A lot of hass happening here.
Love it. Absolutely love it. But it's been a passion for me. Literature was a passion for me when I was in high school. And I think I grew to love history when I learned to understand that there's stories about other human beings. And knowing the story of humanity is just so important.
That kind of anthropological impulse.
Absolutely.
What does it mean to be human, and who are we? And
Definitely.
Yeah.
And to be able to put myself in a picture somewhere that's bigger than just my experience. That was probably a little bit later on. I think there needs to be a little bit of maturity to study history required in that respect.
That's great. Well, across ACS, again, we've got around 40 schools. We've got around 30,000 students roughly, and we all play different parts. And if we imagine it a bit like 1 Corinthians 12, it speaks of the body of Christ. Well, if we picture ACS as an educational body, all seeking this Christ-centered education for the common good, what part of the body is TCC?
That is a challenging question, and I had one answer, and I was told not to go that bold. So I'm going to go with the elbow.
Okay.
In particular, the ulna. Because,
nice. You don't want to bang that one.
No, but we're a little bit funny.
Okay.
As a school.
Funny both.
Funny. We're a little bit different, and so that often, and we've always been a different school in our history.
Yeah.
So I chose that. Because we sit outside the box quite a bit in a number of areas, but also in thinking about that, I was thinking about the teaching and learning we do here. And we certainly believe in repetition and memorization.
Yeah, which isn't as common nowadays for many.
No, not at all. And we also believe in iterative learning, so a process of going over the same thing over and over again.
Although spiralling upwards, one would hope.
Always spiralling upwards, always improving and that type of thing. And then I was also thinking about the fact that we certainly talk to our kids and we hope to develop in our young people virtue. And so we talk about the cardinal virtues quite a bit, which, as many people know, would be the hinge virtues. So I was thinking hinges, elbows, all of that type of thing, hard work.
Tennis elbow if you use it too much.
Tennis elbow if you use it too much. I did think about that as well. But I would say we're the elbow in the situation of the body of Christ.
Great picture. So let's dive into some of the big questions. So the first one I want to ask is, what is one of the biggest challenges you're facing at the moment at TCC? Not just a challenge in general, but something that you feel tempts you towards mission drift. And how do you stay on track with what you're called to be and do?
I actually think one of the biggest temptations in Christian schools at the moment is around technology, and I'm going to include AI in that as well, because the world is telling us, society is telling us, technology, AI, it's an efficiency. It's going to help reduce your workload. Students need to know about it when they go into the workplace or when they go into university. You should be training in them, and that's what you should be focused on, making sure your students are not only skilled but knowledgeable. And then they'll probably tack on somewhere in there, but they've also got to be critical. It's like how do you teach young people to be critical thinkers, not critics, but critical thinkers?
That's an important difference, isn't it?
Yeah, huge difference about something that they can't even contemplate to a degree, like the ephemeral nature of AI. It's not embodied for them in any way, shape or form. They don't know who created it. They don't know the intentions behind the creation. And yet they're told to embrace this.
Yeah, which is not particularly critical.
And it's not particularly critical, but their own hearts aren't yet formed, not solidly in many ways. Maybe some of my year 10, 11s and 12s who've delved a little bit deeper in their faith, and they're really thinking about being independent from mum and dad in their faith journey. But their own hearts, their character isn't fully formed yet themselves. And so we're encouraged to focus on forming these young people around this technology that, if I'm really honest, scares me, not because I don't know it, but because the amoral nature of it in many ways, although I don't think anything's really amoral.
No, and it's got an inbuilt bent with every algorithm, which is directed towards efficiency and interest and novelty, which could work against what's substantial.
Absolutely. And students, you know, they and that's why I include technology. I don't want it just to be about AI. The programming, everything that's gone into making technology, whether it's their smart screens, iPads, whatever, their mobile phones, the designing that's gone into them to make them addictive to our young people. They really are a tool shaping who they are in their personality, in their character, in their spirituality, and it's an uncontrolled space.
And it's beyond what they've got ability to resist, frankly.
Absolutely.
I mean, we were chatting at the summit about Johann Hari's book, Stolen Focus, that the gamification of technology and all the notifications on the phones essentially is working on your brain like an addiction does. It is an addiction, which means expecting individuals just to resist. You need a culture that's different.
Yeah, and I think for a school in particular, it's not that we're anti-technology in any way, shape or form. And that's where I think the challenge is we have parents and families and young people who want to use technology. They want to be ready for the 21st century as they see it. And so a school, I think, would be very bold and very brave to say, we actually think technology is a hindrance to the preparation of your child. But I also think it can be a challenge of mission drift, because you could be focused on, do I have the best tech in the classroom? Do I have the most students in whether it's drone technology, AI technology, computer technology, 3D printers, whatever it might be, and not stay focused on who they are, how they're formed. Are they fertile soil for the Holy Spirit to work in them? Are they living a life that is going to be serving Christ once they leave here? And I think that can be a real challenge.
Especially, you kind of already answered this, but if I'm to play devil's advocate, one of the tricky questions often thrown around in this space is, well, if child A and child B can produce the same output, the same outcome in terms of in the workforce or whatever, and one uses AI to get there and the other one doesn't, what's the difference? I mean, whoever can get there faster and get the same output, what's wrong with that?
Well, and I think that's an interesting, that's a very interesting and challenging question, in the fact that efficiency has seemed to be the number one goal. I think in so many industries, not just education, but where is the humanity in what is produced? I think that yes, you can produce something efficiently with AI, but the response to humanity, the forming that you're doing. Like, I think about advertising. We could do advertising with AI very, very quickly. You wouldn't have to have the skills that are there. But what is that doing to your audience? Anything that we do, anything that we create, it's not just shaping us, the creator, it's shaping the people that we create.
And the consumer.
And the consumer in that. And I think that's that moral conscience that we need to have as Christians. The moral, it's a moral imagination as well in many ways, that we have to understand that we are shaping other people, and we can be concerned about that if we're talking about other human beings. As Christians, we should be concerned about how we're doing those things and what we're shaping in people. So it doesn't really answer your question about efficiency.
No, but that's helpful.
But it's a way of looking at the world, and I think that's part of the problem. If I continue to look at the world, if I train people, young people, to look at the world, that everybody else is just another stepping stone or a cog in the wheel, or they're expedient and therefore I can use them and lose them. That's not how Jesus taught us to live in relationship. That's not how he taught us to engage in our communities. We are supposed to be community builders, relationship builders. Efficiency doesn't correlate with relationship. I don't think technology correlates with relationship terribly well either. It keeps long-distance relationships connected, and that's beautiful, and we can see each other's faces rather than waiting 3 months for letters these days and everything along those lines. But it's not... They're a tool that we can use, but they're not the tool for relationships.
So it's a good tool when we use it, but it's a bad tool when we're used by it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it reminds me of when, I can't remember which author it was, but drawing on one of the Japanese theologians, the 3 mile an hour God, saying we need to move at the pace at which people are transformed. And if our call is to love, to see people grown as image bearers, not simply to get stuff done, then that has implications for the way we educate as well.
Absolutely.
So what does that mean practically? Because, I mean, obviously the young people will be using some AI. They still need to learn how to operate in a technological world. The aim is not frictionless existence, it's love, but still we have tools.
Absolutely.
So what does that mean practically in the school? Do you have certain rules as to how you do or don't use AI or do or don't use technology?
At the moment, we don't use AI at all in the school, but that's because we've taken a very slow wait and see approach, which was probably the advice we were given by some much more knowledgeable people around AI, is what is your philosophy of education, and then how do you shape AI to be a tool in that, not the other way around.
So you're focused in on the face-to-face, person-centred.
Face-to-face, person-centred. So in our primary school, we have smart boards. We have probably all the technology most other schools have, if not a little bit more. But it's about when students are released into using that technology and what they're using it for. So we're very much looking at the idea of our laptops. So we have a one-to-one laptop program in the secondary school. Is that actually a help or a hindrance to our young people in their formation of knowledge, in their formation of character? They've shown us that they're trustworthy and they can look after expensive items and all of those types of things. But is that enough to justify having a one-to-one laptop program in the secondary school? And certainly as our older students, where they do need to be engaging in AI, especially for their university studies, if they're doing them here at school, they do need to be able to be trained in them. But I think
how to use it well.
How to use it well. But I think at their age, when we're talking 16, 17 and 18-year-olds, they have a much greater foundation of understanding what is good for them, understanding who they are.
I'm hoping they form some character to be able to resist the bad uses.
Absolutely. And that's probably what we're more focused on in the younger years, is let's form who they are. Let's form how they think about tools like technology, just like how they would think about using a hammer in woodwork or a paintbrush in art and those things. Let's put the tool in the right place in their mind and in their understanding of what it is, and form them as young people first, and then let's get the technology. Let's have them exposed to that, because then they can put it in the right contextual space for themselves.
And it's so good that you're asking these questions. Many don't even ask the questions. We just roll along with the age. But I was thinking of one of the great philosophers of our age, Hartmut Rosa. He basically said the key characteristic of the modern world is acceleration. That we're always trying to get somewhere faster with less effort, but actually that comes at the cost of what it means to be human. And in his companion volume, he talked about, well, if acceleration is part of the problem here, going faster towards goodness knows where and goodness knows why, then resonance is kind of the flip side of that is that how we resonate with a creator, with each other, with the world, within oneself, that we're in tune with each other, but that requires slowing down to do so. So that's really helpful. Well, let's flip now from challenges to opportunity. Where do you see a really significant opportunity in this particular moment for TCC? Not just in general, but for this purpose of Christ-centered education for the common good, not just for the good of Christian kids or Christian families, but for Highfields, for Toowoomba, to form citizens who actually love well. Where's a great opportunity facing you for that at the moment?
I think the opportunity is really in our character education program, our formation program for our young people, about what people would probably call the soft skills of life. What are we actually forming them in? So our virtues education, what does that actually look like? So it's not just about academics, because the mission of our school is to prepare young people to serve the living God in today's world. And so we know that means tech, but we also know that means relationship. So much of our connections with our community, Toowoomba, Highfields, is about relationship that we've built over time, going back to whether it's organisations or community groups or something along those lines, our families. So I think a real opportunity that we're looking forward to is really developing what does it mean to have a program where we're deliberately, intentionally forming and responding to the needs of young people so that they can go and leave school, and even before they leave school, but they can be looking upwards rather than inward for opportunity to serve, to opportunity to be engaged. So at the moment, again, we have our camps program in the school, and they're very much focused on our school virtues, our cardinal virtues. And what we're now trying to do is map out how does that look at each year level, because something like temperance for a 13-year-old is not the same as temperance for an 18-year-old.
Well, maybe just tell us the cardinal virtues, just so that people have got a sense, because not everyone's coming from this tradition.
That's true. And I'm afraid this is where my memory is going to fail me.
This is why I'm asking you, an ungodly hour of the morning. So,
so we have temperance and justice and prudence and
fortitude. Nice. So we've got courage. We've got all this kind of combination. Why those four? I mean, I know they're cardinal, but what's the thinking here, and how do you go about forming those things?
Our thinking in looking at these cardinal virtues and adopting the cardinal virtues was very much about, as I sort of mentioned earlier, trying to create fertile soil for the Holy Spirit to work. So we need to help create in young people that idea of fortitude, of persevering through difficult times.
Which is kind of resilience in one sense, but it's that plus.
It is, but it's also the idea of a fortitude in their faith, being able to wrestle with difficult things that are challenging them about why they believe or don't believe, and actually moving through that with them. And I think in doing that, and these are embedded. These are embedded across the school. So to actually say, how do we do that? It's in our classes. It's in our behaviour management. It's in our camps program.
So like every subject, I'd think about how does this form those virtues?
How does it form those virtues? Or they might have specific units focusing on those virtues.
Great.
So our English program, they will read text. So again, linking to our liberal arts, they'll read classic texts about characters who were struggling with these virtues or one of these virtues. And then they'll ask questions, well, how does that apply to me? What do I see myself in the story? And what was their outcome? And if things turned out badly for somebody because they didn't have this virtue, what can I learn from them? What can I also avoid? Which is supported in their Christian studies class whether they're looking at church history or whether they're looking at the Gospels or the Old Testament and understanding the tradition of faith that they are being encouraged to be a part of, the church community that they're encouraged to be a part of. And again, we're a P.12 school, so something like temperance in one of our preppies might be things like keeping our hands to ourselves that might also be
Not
saying
stealing the
grade 12.
crown. Yeah.
But keeping our hands to ourselves and learning that self-control. But in the high school and moving into that space, we want to see them actually modelling that on the sports field. Where they're playing by the rules. They're not allowing their emotions or the adrenaline of the volleyball court or the odds tag field to overrule their common sense, their temperance that they've been trained into them because they want to be good sports people. They want to be community builders on the sports field just as much as anywhere else.
Now, you're already touching on this, but if I press a little bit with an entirely unfair caricature, but it's just to push on this. In some communities, the Christian school could be quite insular. We keep our Christian kids predominantly, largely safe from a world that's lost its bearings. We're to be the light on the hill, but goodness me, the hill doesn't really want to connect with the valley. And so you could end up with a community of really holy kids, but who are wholly disconnected from the communities they're part of. So how does this formation of virtue shape the common good in and around this school and beyond?
Yep, absolutely. I think the fact is that we are very much an ecumenical school, so we're probably sending students out or receiving students who come from 40 or 50 different churches from around Toowoomba and beyond. And also we have families who are not Christian here at the school where we don't...
That's an open enrollment.
It's an open enrollment policy, and parents are choosing to come here because we are a Christian school in that way. But we are always looking for opportunities to connect outwards. So internally, we teach students about fundraising and giving and the triple bottom line in their businesses and all of those types of things. But we have service days once a year where our entire secondary school will go out. And that isn't about just filling time at the end of the year. That's actually been a tradition in the school and something that we want to hold on to, so that they go out and they actually see the need in their community. Our Year 12s participate in 4 milestone events throughout the year to celebrate their final year of secondary schooling. But one of those is a week of service in the community. So they're split up into small groups. And whether it's in old age homes, whether it's feeding the homeless, whether it's sorting clothing donations for somewhere, or it's actually being in the community, visiting people in their homes and that type of thing. There's a strong refugee community here in Toowoomba.
From which countries in particular?
Oh, wow, it's changed over the years. So we have a strong Yazidi community. Sudanese community is still quite strong here in Toowoomba. But so more the African, Middle Eastern communities in particular. But it's because we're one of those cities that welcome, we've just got such a diversity of cultures.
So they're really connected on the ground level. And
trying to be, and also trying to encourage them, again, in their day, where in your day, in your week, do you actually do something that's not for you, but for somebody else?
Which is the whole idea of the virtues, is to be people who look up at God, out at their neighbour, down at the world.
Absolutely.
Outward focused.
Outward focused in those ways. So, and we do that in little ways here at school, in the fact that students have a responsibility for a particular area in the school. So they might do rubbish pickup. I've got one group of kids who are keen gardeners, so they work with the gardening team and they want to maintain the beauty of our environment.
Fantastic.
Type of thing. So that's where and again, opportunity. We're not there yet. We're not fully finished or anything.
And you never finish that work, frankly, because it's disciple making, it's formation, it never finishes. But
always pops up. And that's the thing is, we want to be open to opportunity. We don't want to say, oh, that doesn't fit into our school week, or that doesn't fit into, we're very busy at this time with academic stuff or sporting stuff, or we always want to be open to opportunities.
Especially when the point is the formation itself.
Absolutely. So I have students who sort of come with ideas and they're like, how can we make this happen? And so even if it's not, often it's not in the school, but it's something they want to do out of school. We help them really plan and think that out for their youth group or their church or their, they've got different sporting clubs and that type of thing.
It's great. Well, let's now talk about experiments. So the culture's changing fast. Education is changing. If you're just trying to stay where you are, you're probably drifting in one sense because things are moving. So what's an area, and it may well be the liberal arts, but what's an area that you say you're experimenting? And what wisdom can you offer us as other schools experiment similarly? Maybe lessons or wisdom won by things not working as well, because if things are working all the time, we're maybe not experimenting hard enough. So take us to a bit of that journey for you.
Where are we experimenting? Yes, I would say our biggest experiment is the liberal arts. And we've probably seen great success in places like in the practical arts, so our graphics, our woodwork and technology, engineering, visual art, media arts, those areas where beauty and truth can be expressed in so many different ways while developing practical hands-on skills. And so it did take our teachers time to think about, well, what is woodwork within the liberal arts? So we talk about the master craftsman. We talk about working with the beauty of the nature of the wood, of even when we're talking about plastics or those types of things.
That there is an order to creation and a telos for what we're making.
Absolutely. And passing that on to the students, but it's really the heart of creation and being co-creators. I think that was one of the biggest hurdles for our kids to actually overcome. What does it mean to be a co-creator? And therefore, what am I expressing?
Actually, we can just pause for one sec, because I'm aware that even as there's a lot of stuff out there about the liberal arts, if you were explaining to me as like a parent of a kid, you know, enrollment, and they're like, we hear that you guys are something about the liberal arts tradition. What is this liberal arts classical education? Like, what would be your 1 or 2 minute kind of pitch of what on earth is this thing that we're talking about? Isn't it just education with a reference to more Greek people? I mean, like, what is this? Yeah.
So the liberal arts is really a way of thinking. What is the purpose of education? Which for us is about forming and preparing young people for life. So it's not just about job or education. It's actually, who am I as a parent? Who am I going to be as a community member? So our education is aimed at developing that whole young person, which is where the Greeks and the Romans probably really thought about it most. Is like, what is a good citizen? That is what we're really asking.
Asking fundamental questions as to what the purpose of something is.
What the purpose of something is. How we do that is we look in particular at history, being critical to understanding our place in the story, in God's story. So we as individuals are not the center of the universe. So where do we fit in God's story, and what lessons can we learn from that history that we understand? It looks particularly at the type of literature we engage in. So we look very much at classical literature, Aesop's fables, the Odyssey, all the way through to some more modern ones like To Kill a Mockingbird, Frankenstein. These are core texts that challenge key ideas within a society that has just accepted the scientific revolution, the industrial revolution, those types of things without asking too many questions.
So they have a vision of the true, the good, the beautiful, the unified,
all of those things. And then also I think the liberal arts very much is about celebrating in each of the subjects what is known as the grammar and the logic and the rhetoric of those subjects. So what is the very basics?
The building blocks.
Building blocks of each subject, of language, of science, of mathematics. What are the building blocks there? Then looking at the logic. What are the patterns? What are the relationships between those building blocks? And how does that help me understand the world? And then the rhetoric is really about how do I use these building blocks and these relationships to either create something new or to understand what is being created. So understanding the mathematical equation, even though it looks long and complex, it's actually just lots of building blocks that I already understand. And I can see how I can use this in engineering. I can apply it because I've been challenged to apply my thinking in the rhetoric phase.
And how do you do that then while trying to meet the demands of the Australian curriculum? And NAPLAN and ATAR and all this kind of stuff, because you're in a world that's not really aimed at that stuff.
No, it's not really aimed at that stuff. I think the national curriculum is a challenge because it is very overloaded. I think it's overloaded in probably from grade 2 all the way through.
Yeah, there's some good material, but I mean, there's the elaborators and the number of dot points is just like overwhelming.
But really, I think it was about understanding what our requirements were with the national curriculum. What did we have to meet? And we've understood that. And so cutting out of our teaching program, curriculum program, that which wasn't essential in the national curriculum.
I would say it's 80% at most. It's not really meant to take the whole of the curriculum.
No, but it does. And we all know it does because young people learn at different phases and that type of thing. And when you're teaching young people grammar, literal language grammar, you're teaching them how to parse sentences. You're teaching them how to construct their sentences well from that same process. NAPLAN sort of takes care of itself. It's not a big deal because they know the basics of language. Their reading comprehension improves. When students know their times tables and they know their order of operations, mathematics takes care of itself in all of that. It's not something that we need to be focused on or scared of. And as a school, again, like I said, we are the ulna of the Christian family. So we are not actually an ATAR school in the senior school. So we're not at this point in time bound by those same requirements. We work directly with universities in that way. So that's a real pleasure that we have and a freedom that we have to really delve deeply with our young people, not modifying programs, but adjusting our programs. So our English program is English literature, but it's also philosophy. And so we're really able to embed that there in that way. And I think that's, again, talking about the experiment where we started, that's really been the experiment. How do we balance these things well, especially in the senior school, with what's required and that?
What would you say has worked really well? And then what hasn't worked so well, and what have you learned from it?
I think really what's worked really well is when teachers have adopted this for themselves. They've embodied it for themselves, and they just really fly in their subject area because they, again, can explain the building blocks of their subject because they've bothered to engage with it.
It probably brings back a joy to the teacher too.
It brings joy. It brings joy to the school, and the students start to pick up on that joy, and they don't mind repetition or iteration and improvement because they can see their personal growth and they really engage in that. I think the struggle area, and this isn't because of the teachers in any way, is maths and science. Maths and science in the curriculum are heavily structured and required and that. And if we wanted to be able to teach the first principles of mathematics and
it would take time out of learning.
It would take time out of that. And it would be very difficult for our senior students in particular, but any of our students for us to get through what is required and actually engage there. So that's an area where our maths and science teachers are still looking because they're like, we love this. We want this in our science. We want the joy and the understanding of the beauty of creation and the building blocks of creation. We want our students to experience that joy the same way they do in the creating that they are able to do. But it's so hard with such a jam-packed curriculum and those things. So
it could even be just a good framing lecture at the start, something at the end, and then sorry, it's a bit of a tangent as an analogy, but when I was learning how to snowboard, we're up in Vancouver, learning all the techniques, but every now and then the instructor would make us sit down, look out and just say view appreciation moment. And we'd suddenly go, oh, we've been focused on the mechanics, but oh my goodness, what a view.
Yes.
Just those view appreciation moments on the way through when you look at an equation, you're like, that's beautiful. And how does that work? And how do our minds perceive and correspond with the way things really are? Like what's going on?
Yeah. And I think that's what our teachers are endeavouring to do in that way, and thinking about experimentation or observation a lot more in the sciences space. How do we actually make it connected to their world in many ways, not just theory? It's an interesting challenge.
And often the stories of the founders of modern science, for instance, or mathematics, is one of the richest places to go because what motivated them to discovery often is a much richer story than what we're giving people now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because it's not about the gimmick, or it's not about the quick fix or anything along those
The efficiency.
to where we started.
Yeah.
It's actually about a love and a passion for those subjects, and what they were able to discover through exploration and contemplation, and taking time to lie down and look at the stars at night and actually contemplate what is that about. But that's also what, a part of what we're trying to do is slow our kids down, actually, not just to engage in academic learning, but slow their thinking. Slow. You've got to just
to be present.
Heart rate, and you've got to be present with people, and you're in a community, and we have a beautiful campus. And so we want our students to enjoy and experience God's joy here.
Which is also a gift to the community. We talk about the common good again. Many have commented that we do need non-anxious leaders and non-anxious presences. And when everyone is struggling with their mental health, to have some kids who are present and not nervous about it.
And I think it's also going home. Like I received an email last night from a parent saying, to a staff member, basically saying that, my child got in the car. They're in the middle of the awkward teenage years where they're either in the car and happy, or they're in the car and not happy and not talking. And they couldn't stop raving about your lesson and all of the things that you engaged them with.
That's what you teach for.
That's what you teach for. But I think it also helps our parents know that their young people are cared for, but also that their young people are taking stuff home to mum and dad, going, look what I learnt today. Look what I understand today.
Yeah, they're excited.
Yeah, like, mum and dad, what do you think? And we're helping families talk to one another in some respects, but also for parents to be at peace, going, the school is working with us in shaping our young person.
That's wonderful. Team effort.
Yeah, and that's what we want our parents to know, is that we're working with them. We're not trying to work against them. They are their child's primary educator, and we're the add-on team in many ways.
Yeah. And as you're sharing, we often say with ACS, we're a fellowship. We're not simply member benefits and contracts. We're trying to say, how do we grow together in this common cause and into Christ, who's our head? And in that process, it means knowing who we are, the older, whatever part we play, and saying, what gifts do I have to bring? And also, where can I do with a hand? So what would be one gift that you feel that obviously humbly, it's by God's grace, but what's a gift that you bring to ACS that maybe others might want to reach out and say, Claire, we need a conversation, or Karen, please talk to us about this. What's a gift? And then the flip side, what's a need where you could really do with a hand and some conversation with others in ACS?
Well, we're always happy to talk. So anybody who wants to talk about liberal arts or engage in what it means to be making those changes, whether it's at a subject level, those types of things. But I think really in all of that, what we call our technology space, I've got an amazing team of graphics, woodwork, engineering staff who want to talk about the practical arts, would love to have conversations about what it means to really embrace the practical arts and iterative learning in that space. So they would be a team I would be like, they're guys you want to talk to, because they are really blowing me away.
I've seen some musical instruments made.
Musical instruments. We're currently creating classroom clocks at the moment by students. There's just an amazing array of passion, but also thinking in that space that I would just, anybody who would be going, I just need a little bit of inspiration, that type of thing, come on over and look at that.
But even just sitting here in the art room, like we just walked in and straight away I noticed not just, biblical story, and we've got chivalry as well, but I noticed that on the roof we've got Da Vinci, it is Da Vinci, I hope, with the creation of man, that we've got Mementi Mori and remembering the finitude of human life painted in oil around the room. I mean, this is like Dutch still life. This is a really generative space that I just walk into and I'm like, ooh,
and
lovely.
That's the thing. It's very hard, and that doesn't mean we're always happy for our chat. Our primary school teachers are doing amazing things with literature and grammar and helping young people really embody their learning, so that it's not just take the test and move on, but they're actually embracing and enjoying their learning. So It's more a matter of, well, where would you like some help, support, inspiration? And we would be happy to chat about what we're doing.
Yeah.
We're not saying we're perfect,
but there's things you're discovering.
To chat about it.
Yeah.
And this is what we've discovered in our journey at all aspects of the school.
And what about a need? What would be something that you could do with conversation partners that might help you forward?
Absolutely, conversation partners. I'm always thinking at the moment in particular about what it means to assess students authentically, and really not just assess them for knowledge, but how do we actually enable them through our assessment mechanisms to actually delve deep into what they do know, rather than, the kid who becomes stumped at the question and they can't get over that hurdle.
And for assessment, actually, we often talk about assessment, both unveiling where the person is already at, but also a capstone to their formation, not just in knowledge, but in wisdom, in virtue and skill. So how could the assessment experience itself be a capstone to their formation through a unit?
Right,
yeah.
So assessment is an area that, I'd love to chat to people about, an authentic assessment in that way. And the other area is certainly our character formation program. I would love to be talking to people about how they're embedding character formation, what their programs look like, because I feel like we have some really great pieces that we were talking about, but I'd love to bring them together.
Yeah.
And also see if there's something that I'm missing and not thinking about.
That's great.
I think when you're in your own world, you can become a little bit blinkered as to what's happening, and being able to connect with other schools. Fantastic.
Yeah. And just on that, the ACS Together app, basically, I think Claire's on that. So literally all it would mean is just looking for Claire, and then just sending a message and making a time to chat in person. So again, the technology here serves the real conversation. And that we have a liberal arts community as well, so that people can be interacting on that and saying, let's get together, or we can all even organise an appointment or a meeting, or just share some stories. So keep leaning into those conversations. And if something struck you in this today, do reach out and connect, because I think it's just the opportunity that we have to pool our wisdom, with wisdom in the multitude. So as we finish, we'll be sharing a few prayer points that Karen Budden, as principal, has asked that we could pray for. But what's just one, two, or three things for you and for the community here that are on your heart in particular, Claire?
I certainly would love for continued prayer as the Holy Spirit works with our kids. We have a very strong student community with their prayer groups and that. So continuing to see that revival in our student body of their faith and the growth of their faith. Wisdom for leadership. We're a growing school, and we have building plans and all of those things. But as a school grows, culture and faith need to stay at the center of that. So wisdom about how we actually encapsulate that would be really appreciated, I think.
I would love to pray for that. So would you join me whenever you're watching this as we pray together and lift up TCC to the Lord? So let me pray. Lord, I thank you for this conversation today. I thank you for Claire. I thank you for her, I think it was 16 years, you said, at TCC, in the way that you've shaped her in her own teaching, in her love of you, her love of the word, her love of the students. And I thank you for the wonderful fruit that we see here in Toowoomba. That's blessing Highfields, that's forming great citizens. We just give you praise. So Lord, in line with Claire's prayers, we lift up to you the student body here. Would they continue to grow in faith, to love you, to love their neighbour, to love your world, to know who you've made them to be? Would they invest into those student communities? Would they be places that are not simply safe in our culture, safetyism, but would they be places where they can be brave to step out, to experiment, to discover the gifts that they've got? So would you help them to grow in their families as well, for the flourishing of all? And Lord, you say when we need wisdom to pray for it, you'll happily grant that. So I pray for wisdom for Claire, for Karen, for the whole team here, especially as they look at questions of growth, of campus, as many of us are wrestling with how to be faithful in the midst of growth, how to pursue change in a way that doesn't sell out our core principles and what you've called us to be and to do. So please, Lord, would you grant them the wisdom that they need to make good decisions that keep you at the centre, but that also keep experimenting in this liberal arts tradition. We thank you that you are the God of freedom, and you call us to freedom, to liber, And so I ask that they would enjoy your freedom and in so doing, see students set free as well, to live, to love, to serve, to be responsible citizens, but people that represent you well. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Hey, thank you for your time.
Appreciate it very much. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, I loved it. And until I see you next time, shalom.